He believed the market obeyed him, every move confirmed his confidence, every win made him stronger. Then one night the screens turned red, and by morning millions were gone, only silence remained. Ethan Crowe was known as the king of the market, his name whispered in glass towers and private lounges. He started young, watching numbers move on old screens, learning patterns, learning fear, learning greed. He believed markets were living creatures, and that he understood their breath, their rhythm, their weakness. He won early, small trades became big wins became headlines, money followed him like a shadow. Investors trusted his calm voice, his simple rules: buy before the rise, sell before the fall, never doubt the chart. He built an empire of screens and servers, quiet offices with soft lights, nights filled with green numbers. He loved the silence of control, the feeling that the world responded to his decisions. When he pressed a key, markets moved, at least that is what he believed. Interviews came, magazines praised him, they called him disciplined, fearless, brilliant. He smiled, but inside he felt chosen. He felt above chance, above chaos. He told his team the market rewards confidence, doubt is expensive, hesitation is loss. They listened, because he was always right. For years he was always right. He bought when others feared, he sold when others dreamed. Every crisis became his ladder, every drop was an opportunity. His accounts grew, 8 figures then 9, his lifestyle stayed controlled, simple suits, same watch, same routine. He woke before sunrise, reviewed global futures, drank black coffee, no sugar, no distractions. He trusted logic more then people. Numbers never lied, people did. Late at night he sometimes stared at charts like maps of fate, lines crossing like destinies. He believed he could see tomorrow, not guess it, see it. That belief became his armor, and his weakness, because when success repeats, it stops feeling earned, it feels deserved. Ethan began to think the market owed him, that it recognized his presence, that it would not move against him without warning. Warnings existed, small signals, strange volumes, unusual silence, but he dismissed them. Noise, he said, fear from amateurs. He increased positions, leveraged confidence, told himself this was another test, another victory waiting. His inner voice was calm, too calm. The night before the collapse he stayed late, screens glowing blue and green, numbers stable, nothing dramatic. He leaned back and smiled. Tomorrow would be another win, another proof. Outside the city slept, inside the market was awake, breathing slowly, preparing something Ethan had never seen before, something that did not care about names, records, or kings. And in that quiet moment, with confidence heavy in the air, the future already turned its back on him. The night began like many others, calm screens, soft hum of machines, the city outside wrapped in quiet lights. Ethan stayed alone, his team had gone home, trusting his instinct, trusting his confidence. Asian markets opened slow, nothing unusual, futures moved within expected lines. He watched without emotion, hands steady, breath even. Then a small shift appeared, barely visible, a sudden dip, then another. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, volume increased, not panic yet, just pressure. He told himself this was normal. Markets test the weak. He added to positions, confident, precise. Minutes passed, the dip deepened, red numbers spread like spilled ink. Phones stayed silent, alerts blinked once, twice, then constantly. He ignored them. Charts can lie short-term, logic holds long-term, but logic began to bend. Europe opened early with fear, unexpected news, unclear sources, rumors moving faster than facts. Algorithms reacted without emotion, selling, selling, selling. Ethan's screens turned red, deep red, numbers falling faster than he could calculate. He tried to slow it, entered orders, adjusted exposure, told himself this was the bottom forming. But the market did not listen, it did not pause, it did not care. Liquidity vanished, bids disappeared, prices slipped through empty space. His leverage amplified every move, each drop multiplied the damage. His breathing changed, shallow now. His jaw tightened, still no panic, just disbelief. This should not happen, not like this, not without warning. Margin calls began quietly, polite at first, then urgent. Messages stacked, systems demanded action, demanded capital, demanded surrender. Ethan felt heat in his chest, his hands moved faster. Cancel, replace, hedge, protect. Nothing worked. The market moved as one massive body, blind and unstoppable. Charts broke their own patterns, supports failed like paper. The night grew loud, alerts screaming, screens flashing, time compressed, minutes felt like seconds. Hours vanished. He watched millions evaporate, not slowly, instantly. Values he built for years erased in one unstoppable wave. He realized too late, this was not a correction, this was a collapse, and he was standing in its center. When the final threshold broke, systems locked positions automatically, his control vanished, decisions removed. The king had been dethroned by code, by speed, by fear amplified into structure. As dawn approached, the screen settled into a terrible stillness. The damage complete, the silence heavier than noise. Ethan sat frozen, eyes dry, mind blank. Outside the first light touched the city, inside his empire was already gone. Morning arrived without relief, light filled the office but changed nothing. Ethan remained seated, unmoving, screens now quiet, numbers frozen in their final state, losses confirmed, positions closed. The system had spoken. He checked reports slowly, methodically, as if calm could reverse reality. Totals appeared clear and final, not millions, not zero, but negative, debts layered over ruins. Leverage had turned against him completely. He felt hollow, not shocked. Shock had passed during the night. This was heavier, this was understanding. Phones began to ring, ignored at first, then answered, voices professional, careful, distant, brokers explaining procedures, obligations, timelines. Ethan listened without interruption, without response. His name no longer carried weight, it was just a reference number now. News moved fast, faster than markets. Articles appeared, headlines softened by morning politeness, but sharp underneath, the fall of a legend, the end of an era. Commentators spoke of risk, of hubris, of warning signs missed. Ethan turned off the screens, one by one. The room dimmed, silence returned. He stood slowly, legs stiff, body heavy, years of confidence drained overnight. He walked through the office, empty desks, dark monitors, chairs pushed in neatly. This place had been a kingdom, now it was a shell. Security waited by the door, respectful, silent. He nodded and left. Outside the city felt unfamiliar, louder, brighter, indifferent. People moved with purpose. Unaware of his collapse, Ethan entered his car, sat without starting it. His reflection in the mirror looked older, not broken, just stripped of certainty, stripped of control. His phone buzzed again. Investors now, partners, some angry, some quiet, all distant. Trust dissolves faster than capital. He drove home slowly, obeying every signal, every rule, a strange discipline replacing confidence. At home the space felt too large, too clean. Success had filled it once, now it echoed. He poured coffee but did not drink it, sat at the table, stared forward. His mind replayed charts, moments, decisions. He searched for the exact second everything turned. But markets do not offer single moments, they move as systems, and systems do not forgive belief. By noon official notices arrived, formal language, clear demands, timelines short, options limited, assets listed, liquidations planned. Ethan read carefully, calmly, acceptance settling in. This was not a temporary setback, this was a reset, not just of wealth, but of identity. The king of the market no longer existed, only Ethan Crow remained, a man who believed too deeply, trusted too much, and learned too late that the market does not recognize crowns. Days passed slowly, measured not by clocks but by letters and calls. Ethan adjusted to a new rhythm, one without urgency, one without purpose. Lawyers explained options, numbers again filled documents, but these numbers no longer promised growth, they described limits, losses, boundaries. He listened carefully, asked few questions, accepted most outcomes. Reputation faded quietly, invitations stopped, messages grew formal then rare. The world moved on, markets always do. Ethan spent mornings walking the city, no destinations, just movement. He observed people, workers, shop owners, commuters. None of them knew him, none cared. It was freeing and painful at once. He realized how much of his identity had been borrowed from attention, from recognition. Without it he felt undefined. Afternoons were quiet. He read reports out of habit, not hope. Charts still spoke, but softer now, without authority. He noticed patterns he had ignored before, human patterns, fear cycles, crowd reactions. Overconfidence repeating endlessly. Evenings were hardest, silence grows louder after success fades. He cooked simple meals, cleaned his space, reduced his life carefully, selling what could be sold, not out of panic, but necessity. Each item carried memory, each memory carried weight. One night he opened old notebooks, handwritten notes from early years, cautious entries, doubts, questions, reminders to respect risk. He smiled faintly, remembering who he was before certainty hardened him. That version of Ethan had survived losses before, smaller ones, but cleaner lessons. Sleep came unevenly, dreams filled with moving numbers, falling lines. Waking brought clarity, not optimism, but awareness. He understood now that the collapse was not an accident, it was accumulation, small ignored warnings stacked into inevitability. Markets punish arrogance silently, then completely. He stopped checking news, stopped searching his name. Comparison brings nothing after the fall. Instead he focused on structure, routines, discipline without reward, control without illusion. Weeks later a final notice arrived, accounts closed, obligations set, the chapter officially ended. Ethan felt something unexpected, relief. The story others told about him no longer mattered, only the story he would tell himself next. The silence that once frightened him began to feel like space, and in that space a question formed, quiet but persistent, not how to recover wealth, but how to rebuild understanding, not as a king, but as a student again. Ethan decided to step away from the noise completely. No terminals, no alerts, no constant data streams. He wanted distance, not escape, distance to see clearly. He moved to a smaller place, quieter streets, fewer reminders. Mornings began with simple routines: walking, stretching, reading printed pages instead of glowing screens. His mind resisted at first, trained for speed, trained for reaction, still searching for signals, but gradually it slowed. Thoughts stretched, became less sharp, more honest. He started writing again, not strategies, not predictions, reflections, questions without answers. What had he ignored? Why certainty felt safer than doubt? How confidence slowly turned into blindness. He met people outside finance, craftsmen, teachers, small business owners. They spoke of margins, of patience, of surviving bad seasons. Their risks were real, personal, never abstract. He listened more than he spoke, learning a different language of value, one measured in stability, not expansion. Some evenings he replayed the collapse in his mind, but now without anger, without denial, only analysis, not of charts, but of behavior, his own. The warning signs were clear now, not technical, emotional, the comfort of being right, the addiction to validation, the quiet dismissal of opposing views, leverage of belief rather than capital. He realized the market did warn him, just not loudly. It whispered through discomfort, through anomalies, through doubt he chose to silence. Understanding this did not erase the loss, but it reshaped it. Pain turned into instruction, weeks turned into months, financial obligations progressed as expected, manageable now, defined. He adjusted, lived within limits, learned humility through constraint. One afternoon he was invited to speak, not at a conference, but at a small class, students curious about markets, about risk, about stories behind numbers. Ethan hesitated, then accepted. He spoke honestly, no triumphs, no formulas, just experience, just mistakes. The room listened, not because of his former title, but because truth carries its own weight. When he left, he felt lighter, not redeemed, but aligned. He understood that influence does not require dominance, and knowledge grows deeper when shared without ego. That night he slept peacefully, not because the future was secure, but because it was open, and for the first time since the fall, Ethan felt ready to move forward, not to reclaim a crown, but to earn understanding step by step. Time continued its quiet work, smoothing sharp edges, leaving lessons intact. Ethan felt stronger, not richer, but steadier. His days gained structure again, not driven by urgency, but intention. He began consulting informally, small conversations, careful questions, no promises, no predictions, just frameworks, risk awareness, decision hygiene. People listened differently now, without worship, without fear. And that felt right. One offer arrived unexpectedly, a small fund, conservative mandate. Limited leverage, transparency above performance. They wanted guidance, not control. Ethan hesitated, old instincts stirred. The market still called to him softly, but he paused, measured his response. This would be a different risk, not financial, personal. Could he engage without returning to arrogance, without mistaking caution for weakness? He asked for time, reviewed the structure. The rules were strict, losses capped, accountability shared, humility built into design. It felt unfamiliar, almost restrictive, and that was the point. He accepted on conditions: slow entry, clear exits, constant review, no exceptions. The first trades were small, almost symbolic. Execution mattered more than outcome. He felt tension again, but cleaner, focused, every decision documented, every assumption questioned. He encouraged disagreement, demanded it. The team challenged him openly, and he welcomed it. Markets moved as they always do, sometimes favorable, sometimes not, but no single move defined the day. Performance was steady, unremarkable, and deeply satisfying, because survival replaced dominance as the goal. One evening Ethan reviewed results alone, not to celebrate, but to understand. He noticed something subtle: his emotions stayed level, wins did not inflate him, losses did not crush him, balance had replaced belief. He realized this was the real recovery, not numbers returning, but perspective. The market was no longer an opponent to conquer, nor a servant to command. It was an environment, complex, indifferent, deserving respect. That understanding felt earned, not assumed, and for the first time since the collapse, Ethan smiled without pride, without fear, just recognition. He was participating again, not as a king, but as a careful observer, aware that any moment could still go wrong, and comfortable with that truth. Success returned quietly, not in headlines, not in sudden jumps, but in consistency. Weeks aligned, months followed. The fund grew slowly, predictably. Ethan watched without attachment. Old reflexes sometimes surfaced, moments when a trade moved sharply, when instinct urged him to press harder, push further. He felt the echo of his former self, confident, persuasive, certain, but now he paused, named the feeling, and let it pass. Discipline became internal, not imposed. One afternoon news broke. Of another collapse, a different fund, a different name, familiar patterns, aggressive leverage, blind confidence, fast rise, faster fall. Ethan read the article carefully, not with satisfaction, but recognition. He saw himself between the lines, the same language, the same justifications. Markets changed, technology evolved, but behavior repeated. He closed the article and sat quietly, understanding how easy it is to forget lessons when momentum rewards belief. That evening, a former colleague reached out. Cautious words, subtle regret. They spoke openly for the first time in years, about pressure, about expectations, about how winning can isolate faster than losing. The conversation lingered with Ethan, reminding him that collapse is rarely solitary, it spreads through teams, through trust, through shared silence. He began mentoring more intentionally, not teaching tactics, but asking questions. Why this trade? What if you are wrong? What would make you exit early? He noticed resistance at first, then curiosity, the same journey he had taken, compressed, guided. Some listened, some did not, outcomes varied, but the process mattered. Late one night, Ethan reviewed his old accounts again, not balances, but timelines, seeing the arc clearly now: rise, dominance, collapse, reconstruction. It no longer felt tragic, nor heroic, just human. Markets reward adaptation, not status, and punish rigidity disguised as confidence. As he shut down the screen, Ethan realized something simple and final: the market had never changed its rules, only his relationship with them had, and that realization brought a calm deeper than profit, deeper than recovery. It brought closure, not of loss, but of illusion. Years no longer rushed past him, they unfolded, measured in seasons, not quarters. Ethan's life stabilized into something quiet and deliberate. The fund continued its modest path, never spectacular, always resilient. He declined interviews, avoided narratives. Anonymity became a form of protection and freedom. His mornings started with reflection, not prediction. His evenings ended with review, not regret. Wealth returned gradually, but it felt different, not as validation, not as proof, simply as a tool. He noticed how easily numbers lose power when they stop defining identity. His relationships improved, fewer but deeper, built on honesty rather than success. One day he was invited to a private gathering, small, thoughtful, experienced investors sharing stories, not victories, but lessons. Ethan listened, spoke briefly, admitted uncertainty openly. The room respected that more than confidence. Later, walking home, he realized how far he had traveled without moving physically. The collapse that once felt like an ending now looked like a boundary, a line he needed to cross to see beyond. He began writing again, not for markets, but for people, essays about risk, humility, decision-making under uncertainty. Readers responded quietly, thoughtfully, not with praise, but with reflection that felt right. He taught part-time, helping others understand not how to win, but how to survive long enough to learn. Sometimes students asked about his past, the fall, the numbers. He answered simply, without drama. Mistakes scale faster than success, he would say. The market does not punish ambition, it punishes blindness. Those words stayed with him too. One evening he reviewed his current positions, balanced, diversified, intentionally boring, and smiled, because boredom meant stability, and stability meant freedom. He no longer measured days by profit or loss, but by clarity, by alignment between intention and action. The market was still there, vast, complex, indifferent, but it no longer defined him, and that separation, more than any regained wealth, felt like true ownership. One quiet morning Ethan returned to the city where everything had once revolved around him, not for business, not for recognition, just passing through. The towers looked the same, glass and steel reflecting confidence. Inside them new names ruled screens, new kings believed in control. Ethan felt no resentment, no superiority, only distance. He understood now that markets recycle stories faster than people learn them. He walked past his old building, paused briefly, then continued. The past no longer pulled him back. His life was simpler now, not smaller, simpler, defined by intention rather than ambition. He still traded, still taught, still observed, but without attachment. Losses came sometimes, gains too, neither altered his sense of self. He had learned the final rule the market never explains: survival is success, everything else is noise. That night he wrote one last note in his journal, not a warning, not advice, just a sentence: the market does not need kings, it needs respect. He closed the book, turned off the light, and slept easily. Somewhere far away screens glowed, numbers moved, futures formed, collapses prepared quietly. But Ethan was no longer inside that illusion. He had lost millions once, and gained something harder to measure: perspective, humility, freedom. And as the world continued to chase certainty, Ethan lived comfortably with uncertainty, not above the market, not beneath it, but alongside it, aware, attentive, grounded. The king was gone, and for the first time, the man remained.